check out this deliciously baked Tex-Mex style casserole with beef, sweet potatoes, and black beans. And let's get into it. All right, guys. I hope you all had a happy, healthy, good, fun time weekend. We are getting busy in the kitchen today for Meal Prep Monday. Today's meal is super easy, super simple, and especially easy and simple to measure your portion sizes with. So let's get to it. Okay, first things first, we're gonna start by cubing up some sweet potatoes. And this is Meal Prep Monday with Megan. I started doing this this will be my third week now because I'm a Pilates instructor and I have a lot of female clients, women especially who are either in perimenopause or in menopause. And all of them say the same thing to me about the way they feel about their body, which is generally across the board, all of them strongly dislike their bodies, and especially since hitting menopause, really don't recognize themselves anymore. And they feel like it happened overnight. And as much as I tell them in the hour-long session that we are together, that it didn't happen overnight and that it's a process and, they need to focus on balanced whole meals and all of that stuff. A lot of times it doesn't really get through. So I thought instead of just focusing on the single hour that they're in the studio with me, I should make sure that there is a record of a resource to be able to offer them to look at and gather inspiration from and use for when they're not with me for the rest of their day. And yeah, plus I recognize that there's a need for it because everyone feels the same way and everyone has the same problem, which is, once you get to a certain age, not only does your body start to change, but the symptom that everyone complains about is like the lower belly pooch, right? Like just like that little spot. Nobody likes it and everyone has that same issue. And it seems that once you hit a certain age, it's like inevitable that it's going to happen and impossible to get rid of. So I think trying to get ahead of it and establish good habits before that can happen is really going to decrease the sensation that we are not in control of it. And since I can't speak from too much experience, I'm not, I don't have a six-pack or anything, but I don't struggle with feeling like, I'm unhappy in my body. Overall, I feel really good in my body, and I'm happy that and grateful that I'm strong and able. And it is my hypothesis that if I just keep on this track, that the road forwards will be clear enough for me to, again, feel like I can have a roadmap and that I'm in control of where I'm going. And I want to be able to offer other people, more women, all the women, just like me, the same opportunity. So here we are. Okay, once you have your sweet potato slice, we're gonna slice up an onion. So you can use a red or a white onion, but I recently listened to a podcast on neuroplasticity, which is another thing that women will lose as we age. And so it's a good thing as we approach menopause, especially during menopause, that we nourish ourselves in a way that helps to maintain some of that neuroplasticity, which neuroplasticity is basically just the plasticity of your brain waves, like the ability for your brain to be malleable, pliable, be able to adjust. And one of the things that they were talking about in this podcast, because they had this specialist on, and the podcast is Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. I love this podcast. The people that he brings on are always just experts in various fields, not necessarily pertaining to being a CEO. It's all relative to men, women, and the gamut of issues that all of us face. And so with the neuroplasticity, they were talking about how, having a diet that is rich in fruits and vegetables that have a dark skin color helps to maintain the neuroplasticity of your brain. So it's good to incorporate things like red onion, sweet potato, apples, like anything with like a dark skin. And then of course, just making sure to incorporate a lot of plants in general into your diet is helpful with that as well, which when you eat a lot of plants and plant-based foods, you're also consuming a lot of fiber, which is one of the ways to keep yourself full and to maintain a healthy microbiome to, again, help you to make better choices when it comes to the foods that you eat. Again, don't copy my knife skills, because this is for trained professionals only. All right, once you have those onions chopped, you're gonna chop up some garlic. I use garlic in a jar, so if that's what you have, you can use that too. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna heat some olive oil. I use extra virgin olive oil into the pan. Again, you guys know me. No measuring, just pouring it on in there. And then once that is good to go, slide those chopped onions right in there. And then if you want to chop your garlic, you can chop your garlic and put it in, or I just use garlic from the jar. Again, if you want it to be really garlicky, you use a lot. If you don't, you use a little. And then just go ahead and stir that up. Woo! Still getting used to this burner. This whole stove, actually. Stirring that up. Probably not longer than like 3 minutes with the stirring here and the cooking of these, because you don't want them to get burnt and brown. Okay, and so once that's been cooking for a little while, we're gonna add some ground beef. I have ground bison because I like that it's a little bit leaner than beef. It just doesn't feel as greasy and as heavy in my stomach, but still gives me all the same benefits of red meat and still keeping me full, satiated, and giving me all those minerals. So yeah, you'll just put it right on in there. Once you get the meat in there, kind of like separate it with a wooden spoon. And then we're gonna add some seasonings. You can get whatever powdered taco seasoning you like. I just grab, whatever the store has in those little pouch pockets. I have the Siete taco seasoning. I just use the mild one. If you want to use spice, make this a little extra spicy, then you can do that. Adding it in there, mixing that up. And so once you've added in all your seasonings and mixed everything up, go ahead and let that meat get brown. All right, once that meat is getting brown or very close to brown, we're gonna put in some diced tomatoes. Then add in the sweet potatoes. This is about a sweet potato and a half, and they were smaller potatoes. So you might be able, depending on the size, you might be able to just get away with one, or you might have to do two, depending, again, on how much you want. Once it all comes together, it'll make sense. You'll be able to eyeball it, I promise. Mix that in there. And then we're gonna add some water to this. Pour some water right in. You wanna be able to submerge all of those potatoes, so you'll see that I'm struggling with that at the moment. So we're gonna hope for the best. Then you'll cover that up, put it on low, and simmer for about 20 minutes. Okay, so once that's done simmering for 20 minutes, you're gonna transfer it to an oven-safe pan. We're also gonna add in some black beans. I got these fun Taco Fiesta black beans that have some corn and peppers mixed in there as well, just to give this a little extra fun pizzazz. But you can just use just straight black beans, which is another thing that has that dark outer shell, outer layer, making it really good for that brain elasticity. I'm just gonna pour the whole thing in there. Whole can. Mix it on up. And then last but definitely not least, we're gonna finish it with some cheese. All I had were pre-cut cheddar cheese square slices, but you know, you can grab the shredded the shredded cheese at the store. The shredded cheese, a bag of that, and just kind of sprinkle it on there. I'm just making do with what I have, because that's the other point to all of this is meal prep doesn't have to look a certain way. It can be messy. It can be something that just kind of gets the job done, right? This is going to be delicious, obviously, especially if you're into sort of like Tex-Mex kind of flavors, because that's what we're going for here. My goodness, these pieces of cheese did not want to separate. But yeah, I mean, meal prep doesn't have to look a certain way. You don't have to have like it perfectly, like a lot of things that you'll come across are like really aesthetically pleasing and like looking like works of art. Like that's not what we're doing around here. We're just making good food that we will eat and that will keep us full and keep us making good, healthy choices. So get that pretty covered with some cheese. And then we put this in the oven at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes. And here she is, the final product, looking a little runny, but still very delicious. If it was a little bit more solid, it'd be easier to split it into 4 servings, adding some sour cream, of course, and a little jalapeno. So she's a little runnier than anticipated, so I would suggest maybe using a few more sweet potato slices, like just fill her up, okay? And I don't think they need to be fully submerged, but good news is we got some carbs that we're gonna dip right into this baby. Delicious. It's like a Tex-Mex version of a chili. You can also just eat it with a fork since you have the sweet potatoes and the black beans in there. There's carbs, there's fats. I added a little sour cream. Carbs, fats, and then, you know, there's that ground bison in there, which you can also use ground beef. With all these taco seasonings, it's delicious. Absolutely fab. Thanks so much for coming. I'll catch you next time on Meal Prep Monday with Megan.